Hey, you're listening to Ty Bollinger of CancerTruth.net. You're also listening to Justin and Kate with Extreme Health Radio. These guys are great. Enjoy listening to them. I always do.
Welcome to Extreme Health Radio. Extreme Health Radio.
Where natural solutions to almost every health condition are out there. Join us on our journey to find them.
Now here are your hosts,
Broadcasting from sunny Southern California around the world.
Justin and Kate Stellman.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us here on another episode of Extreme Health Radio. It's a kind of a gloomy June gloom type of day here in Southern California, isn't it?
In August.
For August 5th, 2013, I was hoping it would be a little sunny today.
I know.
But
hopefully it'll clear up.
Yeah, the sun may come out. Hopefully you're having a good day wherever you guys are listening around the world. Really appreciate you tuning in. And last I checked, we were in over 120 countries, which is amazing. And we have a great guest, David Sereda, on today, and he's going to be calling us from Sedona, right?
Yes.
Sedona, Arizona, and we're going to be talking about crazy things like energy medicine and meditation and his pendants that he's got and how to be healthy and all kinds of great stuff like that. So it'll be a great show today, and we do shows 4 days a week on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Sunday, and have a lot of fun providing these shows for free for you guys. And if you'd like to follow what we're doing, you can do so on Facebook. You just go to extremehealthradio.com/Facebook, and you can click the like button on that page and join our community. We'd love to have you a part of what we're doing. And this is episode number 134. So you can go to extremehealthradio.com/134. No need to take notes. Kate will be the secretary. Kate will be the resident note taker for you. So we'll have all the websites and show notes, things like that on there. So check that out. And there's lots of different ways to join the show. We'd love to have you ask questions and join in. You can do that at Justin at extremehealthradio.com
or Kate, Kate, at extremehealthradio.com.
And you can also send us a voicemail. If you go to extremehealthradio.com/voicemail, you can send a voicemail right from your computer to us, and we can play it to our guest on the air. So that's a great little feature we have on our website. And if you'd like to support us on a financial level and you do a lot of shopping on Amazon, we'd love to have you purchase through our link whenever you make a purchase. And you can do that anytime you make a purchase, whether you do health-related stuff or not on Amazon. You just go to extremehealthradio.com/Amazon, and that will redirect you over there every time, and you can make a purchase. We'll get about 5% of your order, or 6% or something. That'll help pay the bills around here.
Keep the lights on.
Keep the lights on, yeah. Keep the computers going.
That's a good thing.
And we got some really great guests coming up. We have Sean Stevenson, who we had the opportunity of meeting I think last week down in San Diego.
From the Sean Stevenson model, right?
Yep, .com. And he's a fitness guy, a nutritionist, and he's really into superfoods and herbs and all kinds of things like that. And then we have G. Edward Griffin,
who's
done a lot of work in the cancer industry. He also wrote the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, I had to clear my throat there. And then we have Dr. Mary Newport from coconutketones.com. And she has done a lot of work with her husband, who had Alzheimer's disease.
Oh, right.
And was able to have some incredible results reversing Alzheimer's with MCT oil, which is just an amazing thing. So we're going to have her on talking about her story with her husband and Alzheimer's disease. And today we have a really eclectic and amazing guy on our show today, David Sereda. And he's a scientist, an author, a filmmaker. He's got a few different websites, lightstreamtechnologies.com, voiceentertainment.net, and one called wavetech.us. And so he's doing some really amazing, kind of unique work out there in the world. And I want to thank you, David, for being on the show today.
Yeah, it's good to be here. Good to be in Arizona. Good to be on the planet.
Isn't that the truth?
That's always good to be on the planet. And how is Arizona? Have you been out there for a long time?
Yeah, we moved from L.A. about 6+ years ago, and now we're going to move. We have a little baby girl, so we're going to move to the Northwest somewhere.
Oh, really? So how come you moved out to Sedona?
Well, I used to lecture here at the Sedona Creative Life Center, and I always liked it. And my wife, Crystal, and I brought her out here. She said she would never leave Los Angeles because of her singing career and pursuing acting. And when she saw it, she just fell in love with it. And she was more of the driving force to live here. And the more time she spent here, she didn't really want to go back into the city life anymore. And it's very conducive for meditation and health. There's beautiful swimming and hiking here. But there's a lot of scorpions here and spiders. So with our little daughter, I decided, I want to get her away from the threat of that possibility here.
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of things about Sedona, like they have a lot of these ley lines that cross through there. Is that a true thing?
Well, they have vortexes, energy vortexes. Yeah, because Sedona is, the red rocks here are basically iron and crystal. You can see these tiny little sparkly crystals inside of the iron.
Really?
And it basically makes it a giant kind of natural crystal oscillator. And you get a lot of lightning strikes here, which really supercharges the rocks and the crystal, and you get these fields of energy that spin, and you can see in certain places the trees actually growing in a vortex pattern. Like they don't just grow straight up, they spin.
Wow. It's interesting whenever I see, documentaries on TV or things about UFOs or something. It seems like there's a lot of sightings of those out there. Have you found that to be the case?
Well, no, I wouldn't say there's a lot of sightings here. I mean, one night we saw strange lights hovering above the courthouse butte here, and then we were unloading our car, and every time I went out, the lights came from above the top of the rock, so they were hovering in the air, and then they were floating off the face, the sheer wall. And then they were kind of slowly making their way down, and there's no way to really explain what that could have been. There were about 6 lights, very soft, and they were just slowly kind of descending.
Wow.
But in 6 years, that's the only thing I've really seen. And there was one night we went UFO hunting, and we really did see something. But if you go out at 2 in the morning here a lot, there are a lot of phenomena. But I've had so many mystical experiences here. It's a very clear environment for meditation and out-of-body and spiritual, experience. So
wow,
that's one of the reasons I like to get out of the big cities, too.
Yeah. And so you're going to move away from there up to the northwest, you said?
Somewhere in the northwest. We're not really sure. We're just going to go.
Okay.
It's a great
explore
adventure.
different areas. Like Spokane, I really like. It looks like a good area.
Okay. And what's going on with, like you said, with the stone in the mountains there, it being filled with something else and crystals?
You see, I mean, I've been studying for the last couple of years. I developed a brand new theory that the Great Pyramid of Egypt is a giant crystal oscillator. And what a crystal oscillator is used for is producing frequencies to tune radio, television, microwave, cell phone, computer communication. There are little pieces of quartz crystal with little conductor plates that when you send an electrical charge through it, it causes the electrons in the crystal to start spinning and generating frequencies. Whenever any 2 crystals are at the same frequency, they're in communication with each other, which is how your cell phone works and your computer.
Okay.
And another little guy that was invented is called a transistor, developed in 1947 by Will Shockley, John Bardeen, and William Bratton. It is an amplifier. They found that crystal can amplify signals. In the old days, they used tube amps, gas tube amps, to amplify very weak radio signals. And tube amps couldn't really send radio transmissions and telecommunication very far, very effectively. But when William Shockley noticed that crystals have these free electrons, meaning unbound electrons, that are normally bound inside of an atom, floating on the surface of the crystal. And he said, oh my God, this is an amplifier. We can use crystals as amplifiers. And it took a long time to get it to work, but they finally found the most simple discovery is that you needed to layer conductive material, which is various types of metals, with crystal to create a transistor. Now, in the early days, your Intel computer chip, Intel stole the transistor from William Shockley, Bardeen, and Bratton, and they created this company in the Silicon Valley, and they made transistors better than the original inventors did. And your first computer had about 2.7 million transistors that are so small you can't see them. They're made of quartz crystal and other types of crystal.
Wow.
They were using in the early days, like germanium. Germanium is found in garlic and reishi mushrooms. Now, what ended up happening is now you've got over 3 billion transistors in your Intel chip, and each one of those transistors, which you need a microscope to see, is literally amplifying different tones of color, sound, picture. That's why there's so many colors and so many pictures on your computer, and all the communications are all being amplified by crystals.
Wow.
So when you look at a combination of living in an environment like Sedona where you have the layering effect naturally of iron, which is what the red rocks are, and other trace minerals combined with crystal, you have kind of a natural crystal oscillator transistor environment. So a lot of phenomenal things have happened here in ancient history. For example, the local Indians, several hundred years ago, I believe 400 or 500 years ago, the Anasazi, they didn't find skeletal remains. They found shoes, clothing, everything in its proper place in the house, and they were gone, completely gone. And that has mystified people to believe that they jumped through these vortexes when these vortexes got super activated, probably during lightning strikes. Wow. And I've been working on the physics of that one for years. But going back to the pyramid, see, if the pyramid were a crystal oscillator, the way a crystal oscillator works is any type of stone, most types of stone, especially the core of the Great Pyramid is granite, which emits nuclear radiation, actually, at a significantly weak scale. When I say weak, it doesn't mean it's nothing. It's significant. And then it has these layers of two different types of limestone on the surface. And that's what you do when you make a transistor. You layer materials to set up what is known as difference. And difference is what voltage is. To get electricity to flow through your nervous system in a body, you need to have some type of difference, which is voltage. It means unevenness. Okay. Imagine a bowling ball or a little marble on a steady teeter-totter, and if you tilt it to one side, it rolls. That's difference.
Okay.
So current is the amount of electrons or bowling balls and their force as they're rolling down the difference plane, so it's volts times amps, which is currents, equals watts, right? So everybody knows what a 100-watt light bulb is. So the body is kind of the same way, and what's amazing is each one of our 7 glandular systems relies on certain trace minerals and crystal, different types of semiconductive material that bond with the trace minerals and form something very similar to a transistor or a crystal oscillator, but they're biological. They have DNA bonded to it, which makes it superior, actually.
Okay.
There are new studies demonstrating the speed of the human aura, and it was measured by a German physicist named Fritz Albert Popp, and he found that DNA in plants and humans and mammals and animals transmits signals faster than light speed. That's faster than your cell phone at 300,000 kilometers per second.
The DNA transfers signals to each other faster than light?
It transmits, like with plants, he found that all the plants were communicating with each other faster than light.
Wow.
So I got very interested in that. In fact, I found that there's a new movement, and you can Google this, DNA transistors. You can Google that, and you're going to see all these articles that's the future of telecommunications, is bonding DNA with transistors. We already have that built inside of us. So it all goes back to what ended up happening to our food and water supply is we lost a lot of our crystal content. We lost a lot of our gold. because we mined it all out of our rivers and streams.
Mm.
And the gold in the silica, silica is quartz crystal, and you get it in plants. I mean, it's in the soil. It's supposed to be in the soil. And phosphorus is supposed to be in the soil, and a lot of things are supposed to be in the soil that aren't there. So when you eat a tomato, you're not really getting a lot of the living DNA bonded to these crystals and elements you need for all of your glands, which correspond to the 7 chakras, to function properly. So then you get a lot of people taking supplementation, and heavy supplementing can be really hard on the kidneys, because when you're putting a lot of powders and different minerals and things, they're not really bonded properly to, I believe you need to bond, for example, gold to some form of crystal.
Interesting. Even a gold supplement or something.
Yeah, and I've created actually a new gold supplement called Pyramid Frequency Gold, where I actually make the gold and bond it to Himalayan salt and water at the same frequency as the capstone of the Great Pyramid. And when I see the way you calculate the frequency of a crystal oscillator, like for example, if you play with a remote-controlled car, right, or a remote-controlled helicopter, right?
Yeah.
If you look inside the helicopter, there is a crystal oscillator with a certain frequency, usually in the megahertz or million hertz range. Mm-hmm. And then in the remote control device, there's a crystal oscillator with this same frequency. So any two crystals that are operating at the same frequency can send messages back and forth to each other. That's how you control the remote-controlled object.
So there's something going on with the crystals then. That's the whole thing.
See, the crystals are the whole thing. See, crystals have electrons that are not bound in the nucleus of an atom floating there for free. Basically, it's free energy, and that's what William Shockley discovered. And when he first tried to get the transistor to work, he said there's so many electrons on the surface of a quartz crystal and germanium crystal, which is found in reishi mushroom and garlic, and you can also mine it, that they said, oh my God, I mean, this is a power source. And so he would run the conductor wire a hair's breadth above the crystal according to the math. It should have picked up the electrons like passengers getting on a train and zooming off, and you got extra power. It didn't work. But when they put it in water, the whole thing worked. And they went, oh my God, it works in water, but we can't make transistors that are wet because the heat will dehydrate them.
Right.
It took him years to figure out. It literally took a year to figure out that the conductor, where they use gold, had to slam into the crystal at a pyramidian angle and actually touch the crystal. And it worked. I mean, that was the big revolution that changed the history of the world in 1947. And then eventually they made multi-layered transistors, which are what we use in our computers and cell phones. So going back to the body, what I found is I started going around with a common voltmeter and measuring my millivolts, which is thousandths of a volt, on my fingertips.
Okay.
Because the body's electrical. The nervous system runs positive and negative ions. And ions are bigger than electrons. Electrons are the smallest particle. One of the smallest particles in the subatomic world is literally the electron, and it runs through your wires and lights your light bulbs and turns fans and runs the computer. Now, an ion requires an atom. An atom is normally net zero, meaning its positive and negative balance each other out. They cancel each other out.
Okay.
But if a free electron from a crystal jumps onto an atom, you've got an unbalanced charge, because if it's unbalanced, that's difference, that's voltage. You've got a charge on an atom, and that's an ion, and that's what we live off of. Our nervous system runs these positive and negative ions that run everything. So by putting crystal in the body, in our diet, amazing things can happen. And we're going to go from the diet, and then we're going to go to my crystal pendants, which actually work even better.
Yeah.
So what happens is that in the Ayurveda, the ancient Indian science, there's this amazing documentary that I saw on YouTube. Not on YouTube, I saw it on Netflix. And you go deep into the jungles of India, and there's all these shaman in there, and they're healing people of cancer and all these diseases that the doctors in the cities couldn't heal people from. And they're using amazing herbs and plants that most of us have never heard of. But in the end of the movie, they say the highest medicine is ground up rubies and quartz crystal, where it's ground up to such a fine powder. And they say the art of grinding it to this ultra-fine state has to be so pure, or it can literally scratch the internal organs and get trapped in the passages in the kidneys. So you have to be really careful. But they said this is the highest medicine.
So
that
these
they
people
cure the most disease with ground-up rubies.
So they were taking this internally?
Internally as a ruby ultra-fine powder. Why?
Wow.
Because the rubies and the quartz crystals and the germaniums have these electrons floating on the surface, and in a powder, they're easily whisked away into the biology, and they give you energy.
Oh. And
there's actually a famous doctor who has proven that people who are sick have really low voltage in their bodies. So if you can get it going, then with crystal, then you can really accelerate healing theoretically.
Wow, this is really good. We got to take a short break, but I'm fascinated by this crystal business that we've been learning a lot about recently. So we're with David Sereda, and make sure to check out his website, lightstreamtechnologies.com and voiceentertainment.net, as well as wavetech.us. And this is just really, really fascinating stuff. So we're going to be right back with David Sereda after this short break. I do a lot of weightlifting and lifting heavy weights at the gym, and I love it. But there's also another side to working out, which actually helps you increase the energy in your body. As you know, in our culture, just about everything is a stress to our body. It depletes us of life force energy and our energy in general, whether it's, coworkers or getting to work or dealing with difficult family members, things like that. All of these things cause stress and energy depletion in our body. And something like Qigong is a really great way to help cultivate your inner energy, and it's been practiced by people in the East for thousands of years. It's put together by Tristan Truscott and Peter Ragnar. You can find it at extremehealthradio.com/Qigong, which is Qigong, and it's called Good Morning, Good Evening Qigong. And I highly recommend getting this product. It comes as a physical product to your house with really great DVDs and workbooks on how to do this ancient art of cultivating your inner energy and building that core energy of your body. And it's been practiced, like I said, for thousands of years. So I highly, highly recommend checking it out. If nothing else, just go to extremehealthradio.com/Qigong, Qigong, and get on their mailing list, because they'll send you lots of free information as well. So check out Peter Ragnar. He looks amazing for how old he is. He's been doing this for like 60 years or something. It's really an amazing product. So check it out, extremehealthradio.com/Qigong.
100% listener supported. Extreme Health Radio. Opening minds and transforming lives worldwide. Don't forget to join our thriving community for health tips, inspiration, and show updates at extremehealthradio.com/Facebook.
We are having a really interesting conversation here with David Sereda from lightstreamtechnologies.com. And don't forget to check out the Qigong course that we just ran an ad for. Make sure to visit our sponsors, because without the sponsors, there is no show. And we do 4 shows a week, and all of these products are picked by me. They're just amazing products. We have the Qigong course. We use it. It's awesome. And so just make sure to check that out. Also, don't forget to follow us on Facebook, like the lady said. Join our community that way. It's really be a lot of fun to interact with you and help you in any way we can. And this stuff about...
Who knew there was so much to crystals? It's been coming up in our lives just all over the place. So
Yeah. Well, lately we've been
education.
learning a lot about crystals, and I just find it so fascinating. And David, by any chance, do you happen to remember the name of that documentary that you just mentioned?
It's on Netflix. It's a really really, it's Ayurveda. I can't remember the name, actually.
Okay.
Ayurveda is in the name of it. But it really stunned me in the end, because that was when I was walking around with a voltmeter measuring my body voltage and then picking up rocks, in Sedona, and then holding them for a bit and then retesting and seeing a slight increase.
So you would hold the rock in your hand and then do a test before and after, and you would notice in your body
a very slight shift. And if you walk barefoot on the rocks versus insulated shoes, I would see a small change as well. And then what ended up happening is, because I started studying solid-state physics, which is, basically the study of materials and their properties, mainly crystal material, and I got really focused on magnetic fields and semiconductive, crystals and the different types of crystals. Then what I did is I found a way to program crystal, because crystal has memory. It has amazingly good vibrational memory. And in fact, there's a lot of science behind the future of memory. Hard drives are going to be crystal hard drives in the future, as opposed to magnetic hard drives, which is what we use today to store data. And they've already stored whole movies in germanium quartz crystal at Stanford University.
Really? And that's been done recently?
Oh, it was done years ago. It's just a question of when you change everything, you can fit many more terabytes in a small piece of crystal than you can on a magnetic drive of the same size. So crystal is superior. So I started taking the idea of natural vibrations like NASA. In the Vedas, the mantra Om that everybody chants in yoga actually means the sound of our sun. And in ancient Egypt, the word logos, logos was thought to be a Greek word, meaning perfect harmonic vibration and mathematically perfect ratio. But in Egypt, it means the sound of the sun. And when you read a scripture, for example, in the Bible, like John 1, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Well, the word in English comes from a Greek manuscript called the Gospel of John, which is Greek, and it's logos. So it really means in the beginning was the sound of the sun, and the sound of the sun was with God, and the sound of the sun was God. So the sound of the sun is a very deep thing. The first thing we did is NASA recorded it. They compressed the waves into the audible spectrum, because you don't normally hear it, and we beamed it at water and did the Emoto effect, where you cryogenically instantly freeze the water as it's being exposed to the sound of the sun, and you get a picture of a frozen waveform, six-pointed crystal. And the researchers who researched restructured water were blown away. They said, oh my God, look at this picture. The sound of the sun restructures water better than any technology out there. So, of course, because it's pulsing this sound all day long, and it's restructuring all of the matter in the solar system. So then I decided I can program crystals with that. And we started making, these designs based on a torus, donut-shaped quartz crystals of different types, like Brazilian blue quartz, rose quartz, amethyst, beautiful, and wrapping them with pure silver wire, because remember, when metal, silver, touches the crystal, you have a semiconductor. You have literally a crystal oscillator actually at work. And if you don't have the metal touching the crystal, this doesn't work anywhere near as good. And the metal on its own cannot do this. And I took a voltmeter, my common voltmeter, and pinched my fingers, which you can see at the lightstreamtechnologies.com. You can download the PDF and see these voltmeter tests. And my millivolts would go way up, like way high. And so we did this with over 1,000 people at trade shows in person, and I got to see a lot of the most clinically depressed people I've ever met have the lowest body voltage I've ever seen.
So I think that Dr. Jerry Tennant talked about healing his voltage, and that's the same thing you're talking about, same exact thing. Yeah.
Same thing. And I found people with nervous system disorders like fibromyalgia, extremely low body voltage. And what would happen is, you see, when people would buy one of my pendants, we'd test their voltage. Voltage goes way up, which is just a local test on that nerve, not actually going into the whole body yet. but they'd go to the aura camera booth down the way and take their picture before and after wearing the pendant, touching their chest, and there were significant improvements in the aura, like really significant. We had the pendants tested with the GDV aura camera, which is probably the most advanced aura camera on the planet right now, designed by a Russian physicist named Konstantin Korotkov.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw really significant improvements with the pendant on the chest. And then in Norway, physicists tested electrically the meridians on the body, and they wired subjects up, and they would have them get on their cell phone for half an hour, which would whack out their meridians. It throws your meridians completely out of balance.
Mm-hmm.
And they would put our crystal pendant on the chest, which is where they got the best results, and the meridians came all back in alignment
Now, is
within
that
about 20 minutes.
is that the same test? Is that the aura test? Is that the same thing as like that Kirlian photography type of thing?
Yeah, it's like the new GDV aura camera by Konstantin is this super advanced Kirlian effect where they take readings off of the fingertips, and then it corresponds to all the different parts of the body.
Okay.
And they can see where there's huge deficiencies of energy. Now, see, it all makes sense. Like this, the reason I give people this science is, in the beginning, I thought crystals. I'm a meditator. You don't need crystals. I mean, crystals are hokey. But when I started to learn how they really work, and then I started sleeping with a crystal, going to bed, holding it in my hand, and my dreams got better, I went, oh my God, these things really work. And then eventually I married a crystal. My wife's name is Crystal, which is really funny because when I was a kid, and growing up in the Bay Area, I used to collect rocks. I love collecting crystals. Now it gets more amazing. See, what happens now is Paramahansa Yogananda, for example, used to have his disciples wear these bangles where he said the gems on the bangle, really high-end gems, had to touch the skin in order for the energy to improve in the body. So the ancient yogis knew the same thing. But it didn't make sense to me back in those days when I was doing the Yogananda meditations. I've been meditating every day for 33 years. I've never missed a day. I've been traveled to India, studied with many different gurus, many different breathing, advanced pranayama techniques, and I found over the years that what gets you the highest naturally is a combination of breath work, meditation, and yoga, asana yoga, and harmonics. And there's two ways to administer harmonic vibrations into the body. One is the most ancient way, which is through sound by practicing mantras. But I found that wearing a crystal pendant that's been vibrationally treated is better than even ingesting tons of supplements, because I would do tests on my body where no pendant, I'd see my volts go down in my body in about 3 days of taking the pendant off, and then I'd take a whole bunch of supplements, calcium, which is an electrolyte, and magnesium, and all this stuff, and there's a little bit of an improvement in the millivolts, but it's not very significant compared to just wearing the pendant. And why is because the way crystals transmit these little unbound electrons is literally on the surface of a big toroidal, 4-inch toroidal pendant. There's way more free electrons than there are in the supplements. And it doesn't matter how many supplements you put down your stomach, if you're touching, especially a vibrationally treated stone, it not only sends the electrons, but it sends the vibrations, the harmonics, into the nervous system. So that's why you see these changes in the aura, and that's why wearing it on the skin, as opposed to swallowing it, works better. I got better results just wearing it over time than I did taking Now, it's not that I don't take supplements, and it's not that I'm against it.
Right.
But I really advise caution in over-supplementing because of the kidneys. They can really get backed up with a lot of these powdered formulas.
Do you think it's possible for people to get their hands on that really finely powdered crystal you talked about in that documentary?
I looked for it. I've looked for it, and it's you really have to be careful doing it that way. See, once you know the physics of how the powder goes in the body, and then it's gonna basically let its electrons go into your nervous system, and it's going to store a certain amount of the complex of the crystal mineral in the different glands, because the different glands store different things, like the thyroid stores iodine, for example, and among other things, not just iodine in the thyroids. And that allows that gland to function electrically, to give the body the charges it needs to keep the nervous system and the heart and the autonomic nervous system going. But the beauty of, like, you know, walking barefoot on the rocks is very good in nature. It's very good to connect with the earth barefoot, to ground into the natural earth resonances in your area.
Mm-hmm.
But I found the next level with all the electromagnetic pollution on the planet, which is very severe right now, with hundreds, actually thousands of satellites out there transmitting data. You're not really free of electrical pollution even in nature. If you see the movie Resonance, Beings of Frequency, you'll really understand what our cell phones are doing to our nervous systems. It's what I found with electromagnetic frequencies is it's not EMF that's harmful.
Okay.
It's the lack of structure. For example, the sun is electromagnetic frequencies, and you need it to live. Plants need it to live, to photosynthesize and build tissue.
Yeah.
The Earth produces a natural electromagnetic frequency, which I just detected, according to the math I got from NASA, as being actually 7.45 hertz at the equator and 7.55 from pole to pole, which is a very interesting subject because Nikola Tesla measured the frequency of the Earth at Colorado, and the distance around the Earth at Colorado is slightly smaller than it is at the equator, which would explain why I got 7.83 hertz.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
A good physicist I know named Elizabeth Rauscher said, you know, she was here the other day. She goes, that's interesting you got 7.45 in the math, because when we went to the equator with our meters, we were getting 7.45, not 7.8 like everybody would expect.
Yeah.
So there's all these healing devices out there that are 7.83, and they're not correct. That is not the base frequency of the Earth. It's 7.45, which is actually a huge discovery of mine, but I've got a lot more stuff going on than that. Now,
is that what they call the
next thing
Schumann resonance?
that you realize is all the electromagnetic pollution that's going on is in your house, it's in your brain. Luc Montagnier, this very famous Nobel Prize-winning virologist, discovers that DNA is reading frequencies all day long. So it's reading all this stuff and getting completely whacked out. So at lightstreamtechnologies.com, I've developed a series of transmitters that transmit amazingly beautiful harmonic vibrations of flowers, the 9 planets, the sun, different star systems even. I've even determined the frequencies of different star systems because NASA has enough data for me to calculate those frequencies.
Wow.
And it's amazing what it does to your meditation. It's utterly astounding how much the meditation state improves meditating near this Lightstream Technologies wand vibrational transmitter. That is because we are no longer living on a planet that's electromagnetically pure.
Isn't there a lot of...
So it's not EMF that's harmful. It's actually what's harmful are microwaves, which are where we transmit most of our cellular and computer data today. So don't think just because it's EMF it's bad.
Okay, it's because it's not structured in the same way that like the sun and other things like that are.
So it's not EMF that's really harmful. So what we did with wavetech.us is we studied materials to create a laptop shield because you want to protect your sperm and your ovaries, your reproductive systems from computer radiation. You do not want to use your laptop on your lap, and you don't even want to use it on your desk with your legs underneath because the radiation goes right through the wood and the steel like butter.
Wow.
And we found a particular material that blocks about 90% of the computer radiation, which is microwaves, from going into the body, and that's what the wavetech.us shield is. Now, this company called Pong Research and many companies out there, I tested their shields, and they don't even block 2 milligauss. They really, the only way you can know if your shield that you're buying is working is either to get your own meter or really understand what material they're using inside of it to see if it's really blocking it. I took an iPhone, which is actually putting out almost 10 milligauss, which is bad. 2 milligauss and higher is bad for you.
Wow.
And the iPhone with the Pong Research Shield, I held the meter right at the skin, and it was all going through. It wasn't blocking anything. And the way they did it is they basically hold the meter several inches away from the phone, and they see a reduced reading. Well, it doesn't work like that because you're holding the phone right to your ear.
Yeah,
You're not holding it 2 inches away. And I don't know what material they're using, but I think you should really research. Our Shield, definitely with meter, can block 80%. But once you get into 4G networks, they radiate so much, the best material that I could find could only block 60% of 4G.
Wow. Well, I want to talk a little bit about that after the break, because you got some really great products over there at wavetech.us, and with everyone using iPads these days and cell phones and all that, this is pretty important stuff. And don't forget to check out his website, lightstreamtechnologies.com, and connect up with David Sereda on there, and we'll be right back after this break. So there's no real way to avoid toxins or chemicals in our daily life. It seems like we're exposed to them no matter what we do in our lives, from paint fumes to mercury fillings, coal-fired plants, perfumes, soaps, off-gassing of carpets in our houses, and genetically modified foods, and foods that are sprayed with pesticides and herbicides, the xenoestrogens in plastics and car exhaust, secondhand smoke, even your dry cleaning and laundry detergents, even your mattresses have chemicals inside them that outgas. So getting these toxins and chemicals and poisons out of your bloodstream and out of your fat cells is going to be really critical moving forward in our society, because it seems like every year there's more and more chemicals that keep becoming introduced with new products in the market. So I would consider getting one of these far infrared saunas. We've got a great sauna developed by Phil Wilson, and I've known about his work for many years, and I'm so proud to be offering his sauna on our website. And he's been in this business since 1975. And this sauna is really great because it slows the aging process. It helps with weight loss and burning calories. I think you can burn like 600 calories in 15 or 20 minutes, and it helps to cleanse the skin. It improves your sleep and helps to prevent illnesses like flus and colds, as well as energizing the body. And it's great for improving blood circulation and promoting cellular renewal, as well as increasing metabolism and inducing profuse sweating. And it's really great. And the great thing is you don't produce any lactic acid, so you can sweat without producing any of this lactic acid that you would normally produce if you lifted weights or went for a big long run. So if you're interested in this, you can check it out, extremehealthradio.com/sauna. It's great because it sets up in about 2 to 5 minutes, and it's portable, and it's super easy to clean. It's got low electromagnetic field radiation coming off of it, and it produces energy and heat inside the sauna evenly. It's great machine. So if you're interested in sweating like this for only 15 minutes a day, it's great. It requires 0 preheating. It's got a 1-year warranty, and Phil Wilson is a great guy, and we're so proud to be offering his saunas on our website. So if you're interested, check it out, extremehealthradio.com/sauna, or you could check it out in our store, and it's $990 plus $25 shipping. And that's really a good deal because many of the saunas out there, you can check them out. They're in the thousands of dollars, $2,000 to $4,000. So this is great. You can buy it through PayPal. You don't even need a PayPal account. It's 100% secure. So consider doing this if you're interested in living a long, healthy, disease-free life. So check it out, extremehealthradio.com/sauna.
Free. All free shows, all the time on Extreme Health Radio. Opening minds and transforming lives worldwide. Join our community today. Sign up to our email list and instantly get our free gift to you, along with loads of inspirational content and cutting-edge tips to help change your life at extremehealthradio.com/subscribe.
We just ran that ad for the sauna, and I think I remember, did you remember Phil Wilson talking about the semiconductor coils and I feel like he talked about how there's crystals in the actual
I think he did.
part of the sauna that makes it hot.
I believe that's true.
Oh, interesting. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's so yeah, guys, don't forget to check out that sauna. Really great machine, and we use it sitting right here in our studio. We use it every single day. It's awesome. And also, don't forget to sign up to our newsletter list. We're giving away a really, really great ebook right now from John Barron called Lessons from the Miracle Doctor. So don't forget to do that. And I think before the break, we were talking about some of the EMF things. But Kate, I know you and I also are talking about in our own lives about crystals and things like that.
They've been sure coming up. And David, I was just curious, you mentioned how you sleep with a crystal or, things like that. What are other ways in which people can use these crystals? I mean, obviously it seems like having some just near you in your house or in your pocket even would be beneficial. But I know we've learned about maybe putting crystals around your house at different points or in corners in order to kind of get some of that energy going or healing or whatever. How would people use these on an everyday?
Well, there's a lot of ways to use them. I mean, one of the traditional ways to get a quartz crystal to release energy is to heat it up.
Oh.
And when you do the hot stone massage, I mean, you don't just need quartz crystal. I mean, most types of stone are good semiconductors, meaning they have the free electrons on them. So when you heat them up really good and you place them on the body, that's why you feel so good after a hot rock, massage treatment.
Right. Oh.
That's called pyroelectricity, which is the heating of a crystal. And then the piezoelectric effect which is pressure applied to a crystal, and it doesn't take a lot of pressure to cause a crystal to release energy. And one of the techniques I use is during meditation, I hold a quartz crystal and I just pulse it with my hands, like I'm squeezing it like a, off and on, off and on, off and on.
Uh-huh.
But the best way, I mean, those are the least expensive ways to get a crystal to get its energy moving. And the heat needs to be a nice, natural heat. I wouldn't use an electric blanket. When you buy a crystal bed, just ask what is the frequency that's going through the heating coil, because that frequency is going to go in your body. And a lot of them are 10 hertz, which is utterly meaningless frequency. Royal Rife found that 20 hertz is one of the most healing frequencies to the body. And 20 hertz is not used in most of the crystal beds that I know, but 20 hertz will produce a lot of heat. I've tested it. Definitely works. There's a lot of new products that could be made out of my research that would be better than some of the stuff out there. But there are some good products out there, like using my transmitter has a crystal core electromagnet, and it has rubies and tourmaline in the core. Tourmaline is one of the most powerful, highest energy crystals I've ever seen. When you look at the chemistry of how it's made, tourmaline has magnesium in it. And it has calcium, magnesium, and it has a lot of things bonded with the crystal that give it it has lithium. And lithium, of course, is used in car batteries and cell phone batteries.
Right.
And lithium is literally a supercharged electrolyte. Now, you don't want to eat your lithium battery because that lithium is actually flammable, and it's used to treat clinical depression as a supplement. But you got to be careful with supplementing lithium. It's extremely volatile stuff. It's better to have a tourmaline crystal, I believe, on the skin than it is to take lithium.
So do you use
in large amounts?
Do you use crystals in your everyday life? I'm sure you use them in a variety of ways, because I think I saw in your PDF ebook where you use it with water and charging water and everything like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be developing a new water restructuring technology. I invented the crystal core electromagnet in the transmitter wand. I have crystals all over my house because I just love them, and really huge ones even. Well, for me, they're huge. They're not. Huge would be 7 feet tall, which our dream is to get a sponsor to build a meditation center with a huge... my new super wand has a pulse super bright light underneath the crystal with a crystal, lab-grown crystal quartz tube with a coil inside, and it's all a beautiful piece of sculpture that transmits harmonics into the body and into the home. We want to make these 7 feet tall, thousands of pounds, and install them in a meditation center the Northwest where we're going. So we're looking for somebody, if there's anybody out there who wants to help do that. Then people can come and do group meditations in front of a live pulse crystal, because a pulse crystal will release way more energy than a stagnant one just sitting, on the counter.
Right.
But even the one sitting on the counter, your hands are warm enough that if you hold it long enough, that's what I did in the early days when, probably over 20 years ago, my first experience was sleeping with a crystal.
Mm-hmm.
And my dreams really got fantastic, like beautiful light realms. And I was like, how is that happening? I never understood it back then. And I slept with it so much, that particular one, I broke the tip on the top. And once you do that, it didn't work anymore.
Wow. And so a lot of people, speaking of sleeping with these things, a lot of people put them underneath their bed, put 7 of them underneath their bed. And
I have them under my bed, too.
Wow.
But that doesn't do anywhere near as much as the harmonic transmitter that I have with the tourmaline core electromagnet. It's because it's not active, but they're nice. I mean, I'm looking at, probably the biggest one I have right now is probably a good 15-pounder, and it's really nice Brazilian, crystal.
Wow. And so now, how do you use one of those to structure water? Let's say someone had a crystal at their house. Can they do something with it to help structure the water?
Well, see, there was a young kid who had this idea that you could produce free electricity by raindrops bouncing off of thin sheets of crystal. And he ended up being right, that when the raindrops hit the crystal, it released energy and electrical energy. So essentially, if you have running water going over the crystal, that's enough pressure to cause it to energize the water.
Wow.
So if you put a small crystal in a glass and then you run your water right over the top of it, it's going to release some energy in the water.
And there's certain types of crystals, too, that you don't want to put into the water because I think they can break up a little bit. I forget what kinds those were. Is that true?
Well, so you would have to be careful if the crystal was cleaned with any chemicals. You would have to make sure you soak it in salt water for a couple of days to clean off any chemical residues. If there's crystals that are flaky, you don't want any big chunks going in the body, because if they get trapped in the kidneys, you're in trouble. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a heck of a kidney
stone. Be careful. You want a nice, solid quartz crystal, and to get really good ones is pretty hard. I mean, they're expensive, and if you go to a gem show where I go to get mine, I mean, that's where you get the best price, but that only happens once a year.
Wow.
Interesting. And so are some of these crystals in that EMF blocker that you have at WaveTech?
No, we don't use crystal not to block EMF. EMF goes through solid steel, aluminum, glass, everything. I've tested everything. And, of course, you can block it with lead, but that's toxic. We're using a non-lead. The most effective way to block radiation is used by the military to carry nuclear fuels is tungsten. But tungsten is so expensive, a foot-by-foot sheet will cost you $400.
Oh, my gosh.
A 1 foot by 1 foot sheet. That's amazing.
A thin sheet, but it blocks better than anything. But I couldn't make shields out of those. Nobody would buy them. Yeah,
one shield would be just $1,000, wouldn't it?
Oh, it'd be $1,000 to block your whole laptop. Yeah.
Wow. So so
there's nothing better than tungsten.
Nothing better than tungsten. So, and people are sitting around with their iPads and things. Those are really dangerous, as well as I would imagine they'd be more dangerous than a laptop. Or have you tested those? Yeah,
I've tested them. My daughter, I have a little shield on my iPad because she puts it on a pillow and then on her lap, and children are extremely susceptible to these types of. These are microwaves. So in the electromagnetic spectrum, you're looking at microwaves, which can potentially heat up cells and cause serious levels of damage. And you don't want children on cell phones, especially the new phones at 4G, or they're over 10 milligauss. Your computer, a Mac computer is about 18 milligauss when it's downloading. If you're listening to something like streaming audio, it goes really high, the radiation. So don't listen to streaming audio or videos on your lap. Once it's downloaded something, or you're just looking at a Word file or something in Photoshop, it's radiating between 2 and 3 milligauss. And there are some inexpensive metals that'll block 2 or 3 milligauss, but But the problem is most of our activity is way higher than that. And it was really frustrating. I went down the periodic table. I had companies send me things that they said blocked radiation, and they didn't block anything. Because I have meters. I'm measuring it all on meters. And there's a lot of scam companies out there. I don't even know how they're allowed to make the claim that they're blocking the radiation, because they're not. I mean, I got by their product and tested, and it's not working.
Have you thought about developing some other products? I'm sure you have on WaveTech, where people could use in a variety of different ways. Because I know I've seen on other websites where they have, jackets or shorts, or if you're sitting next to your big tower monitor. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, if you're sitting next to your tower, like your screen, like when I do film editing, because I make my own films, my eyes are burning in a couple of hours of editing, and it's like I was in the sun without sunglasses. An EMF meter will show significant readings close to your tower, but the problem is, because it can't see it at a distance of even a foot, doesn't mean it isn't there. Over time, the way these meters work is they're not able to see the fall off very well. But if you sit in front of your computer, even your tower, you should really, like an Apple tower is aluminum skin, and aluminum will block a little bit of radiation, maybe 15 to 20% of it, whereas steel won't, and plastic doesn't block a thing.
Okay.
So the PCs, which are a lot of them are plastic, are not blocking anything. And the reason they won't use this stuff in the computer is even the metal we're using inside of the skin. We use an aluminum top on wavetech.us with a flower of life lasered into the top, which is a true NASA sound of the sun flower of life, which is taken from the six-pointed star on the restructured water. So you get this, what is called a differential flower of life, meaning each flower petal is a different size, just like a real flower. As opposed to an even-sided geometry. And in nature, everything is differential, meaning different lengths, because voltage is difference. Energy doesn't flow in an even-sided waveform. It can't move. It needs difference. So that's why nature does everything lopsided, slightly lopsided. So we put that on there, and we actually lasered it in, because once it heats up, the electrons in the steel, in the aluminum, will spin inside of the flower of life and produce an ultra-fine resonance, because the radiation is not going into the body, but it is bouncing off the shield and going upwards.
Interesting.
And once I realized you can't really stop radiation, you can protect the reproductive system, which is critical. Yahoo News reported that like 20% of male sperm was getting mutated using laptops on the lap.
Oh my gosh.
Mutating your sperm. That means if you have children, you can have some noticeable problems in their development.
Whoa.
So, and for women, I know a woman who her first child, perfect birth, second child, she used her laptop on her lap. She had serious complications in the labor. So the WaveTech shield is the only material I know that will block up to 18 milligauss, most of it, which is where your computer's peaking at. There's no material I know that can block that much, except for tungsten, but it's too expensive.
Interesting. And that flower of life thing that you have on there too. I mean, that's a whole few shows in and of itself. What's going on with that flower of life thing, isn't there? Oh,
it's major. Like, you remember, you go. The vibration of the sun is the logos, and the logos, according to the Bible, when you read it in Greek, which Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are Greek manuscripts, in the beginning was the logos, and the logos was with God, and the logos was God. Well, the logos is an Egyptian word for the sound of the sun, and that flower of life is extracted from the imprint of the hexagram produced by the sound of our sun. So it's a sound of the sun, flower of life.
That is interesting. I've heard of the flower of life before and looked into it quite a bit, but never heard of the sound of the sunflower of life. And
yeah, it's a differential. It's a real flower. Look at each flower petal, and they're all different sizes. And you get these double tracking lines because it's really beautiful when you look at it close. And we even have a pendant like that called the Logos at the lightstreamtechnologies.com that we use the same laser.
Did I see?
So, the the thing about health in the world out there is there's a lot of companies trying to make a lot of money using the cheapest material they can to block radiation. But here's what I ultimately found is you can't block this stuff in your whole house. So the ultimate solution is to have a sculpture transmitter like the ones I'm making at Lightstream Technologies. I'm going to try to make more affordable ones because these things are expensive when you're using rubies and tourmaline.
Yeah.
You're talking about really expensive crystal core electromagnets, sacred geometry windings, fitting it in a flashlight tubing, using quartz crystal glass. I mean, they're $1,800. But I want to be able to make one that's more in an affordable range, because the ultimate solution for your house and your office is to transmit harmonics all day into your field. So it's all about vibrational health. So you go from chemical health, and chemistry can only do so much, but the ultimate health that really assists meditation and even your feeling of how you feel all day long. I found when I started transmitting harmonics with meditation and with relationship and even lovemaking, it's incredible the difference that you feel when you have these harmonics in your house.
Wow.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Is there anything, I know we're kind of wrapping up, but is there anything about the grounding technology? I know you mentioned how it's good to walk barefoot. Can you do things like ground yourself in your house? Does that affect anything?
Well, see, grounding, it's really a tricky thing. There are people who believe you should be 0 volts, and that I think that's absolutely incorrect. That there's not a single person I've ever tested who's 0 volts. The Earth is not zero. Tesla found the Earth to be a huge reservoir of electrons.
Okay.
And so when you walk barefoot, you're going to start to plug in to the Earth resonance. But a lot of the Earth resonance is, according to the movie Resonance Beings of Frequency, which you must see on YouTube, is gone. You can't detect it in the cities anymore. They took a group of teenagers, put them in a cave under the Earth where you see the resonance of the Earth is only on this just above the surface.
Okay.
And they put these kids in a cave where there's no Earth resonance, and they got clinically depressed just from being isolated away from the Earth frequency. When they used a transmitter artificially in the cave and reinserted the Earth frequency, they got better. So it proved, one, an artificial transmission can reharmonize the body, but two, without the Earth resonance, you get serious levels of depression, and they can't detect it anymore in New York and LA because of all the EMF pollution, and that's where you have these huge epidemics of depression. You can't feel it anymore. It's not even there. It's drowned out by all these other signals.
That is just crazy how that, I mean, it's nuts. No one thinks about these things.
Mm-mm.
You can, if you had eyes that could see waveforms and frequencies instead of color, you would look, if you live in Los Angeles, you would be seeing a mess.
Mm.
There's even some new alternative med studies that showed people who live within 3 miles of a microwave transmitter, which is a cell phone transmitter, were more likely to develop cancer. They found that 80% of all cancers tested in this one study, they lived within 3 miles of one of those towers.
Yeah, those things are really dangerous, those cell towers.
Yeah, I know how to teach people how to block. Like if you have a transmitter on your south wall coming through the south wall, or you have a smart meter, you can put a plate of a certain type of expensive metal. Tungsten, I mean, you're worth it. You're worth $400, right? If you want to buy a sheet of tungsten and block your smart meter, it'll block it from bouncing in your house.
Mm.
Will that actually prevent the smart meter from working? Will they come back and try to fix it?
No, because it bounces back out to a satellite. It just won't go in your house.
Oh, I see. Okay.
The smart meter is going to work because you're not going to surround it. You're only going to block the inside wall. So, for example, if there's a smart meter on the outside of your living room wall, you can put a sheet of tungsten on the back of a picture frame against the smart meter, and it won't go through.
We're going to be doing a show all about smart meters and the dangers of those things. And if people are interested in looking at to see whether or not they're close to one of those cell towers, you can do a search on a website called antennasearch.com, and that will show you what cell towers are near you. It'll put in your zip code. And
oh, that's a cool feature.
have you ever checked that out?
Well, see, your cell tower is nowhere near as strong as your smart meter. Your smart meter is so strong that the metal we're using in the laptop shield will only block a small amount of it. It'll block 20% of it. That's how strong smart meters are.
Oh, my gosh.
The only thing, and I'm telling you, I'm not going to sell you tungsten because it's too expensive. There's very few companies that sell it. It's hard to get, but a sheet 1 foot by 1 foot, I was quoted $400, and it's not very thick. But it's enough that it will block your smart meter.
Okay, wow.
Because it blocks nuclear radiation. If it blocks gamma rays, it's going to block microwaves.
Yeah.
That's true. Well, David, thank you so much for spending some time with us and telling us all about your work and your pendants and the wavetech.us. And perhaps we can do another show on sacred geometry or something. That would be a
I would love to, yeah.
I feel like we're just scratching the surface of this stuff.
Yeah, thank you for spending some time with us.
Thank you, David.
Yeah, thank you, both of you. And once I get settled in the Northwest, wherever I'm going to live, we'll be in touch.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And I will send you an email in a couple days with the link to this show, and so you can take a listen to it.
Yeah, and I'll post it on Facebook.
Oh, thanks, David.
Thanks, David.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
So David Sereda is an interesting fellow, wasn't he?
Yeah, that guy has my mind a spinning.
He does, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is a really interesting guy. I really liked all the stuff he was saying about the crystals. I feel like there's something going on with crystals, don't you?
Yeah, I feel like that took up a lot of the show, and it's just been interesting because I know it's something that you and I have it's been coming up in our everyday life, and we've been interested in it lately, and
yeah,
seems like an interesting thing to look into. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird how crystals are used scientifically, but everyone talks about crystal balls and things, and you know, how weird all that stuff is. But it's
like the crystal skull, like that movie Indiana Jones.
Yeah, the crystal skull. Yeah, it's just strange how they use them in computer chips and all kinds of crazy things.
Totally.
Yeah, David Sereda is a really interesting guy. Don't forget to check out his website, lightstreamtechnologies.com, and also check out his wavetech.us site. If you're interested in, you know, a laptop or an iPad, what do you call those? Shield
or protector or something?
Yeah, protector from the EMF. And it was interesting what he said too about the way that the EMF field is not necessarily bad for you. It's just that it's unstructured, or it's discombobulated, or what was the term he used?
Oh gosh, I don't remember the term, but yeah, it was interesting.
That was really interesting.
I never heard of that before, and I do find it really comforting that he agrees that there's a lot of products out there that are just gonna sell you stuff that doesn't really, you don't know if it's working or not. So
yeah, it's
kind of going off of faith that his products are really legit products, which they seem to be. So
yeah, we are actually connected up with a website called Less EMF, and we are working on getting the owner of that website on our website as a guest, talking about electromagnetic fields. So if you're interested in either the shield that David Sereda sells, you can go to wavetech.us, or if you're interested in other products, like there's all kinds of other products that I really feel like are really, really good products. You know, like he said, there's a lot of products out there that, you know, they're untested.
Yeah.
But if you go to extremehealthradio.com/less-EMF, that's LESS-EMF, you'll be able to check out some really good products that block EMF and, you know, grounding pads and all kinds of good stuff. So I feel like there's a lot of other topics we could have got to, but David Sereda is a really interesting guy. We'd love to have him on maybe again.
I was going to say he'd be a great guest to have back on.
Yeah, talk about sacred geometry and some other things.
Yeah, you had a whole myriad of topics you wanted to cover, and it was great where it went, but you know,
it's tough to do in an hour.
It's so hard. An hour is nothing.
Yeah. So I hope you enjoyed the interview, and I hope that everything's going well in your life. And again, this is extremehealthradio.com/134. And if you ever need anything from us, you can always email me, Justin at extremehealthradio.com.
Or Kate, Kate at extremehealthradio.com.
And we'd love to help you out in any way we possibly can. And don't forget to sign up to our mailing list, extremehealthradio.com/subscribe. And there's a great ebook by John Barron, Lessons from the Miracle Doctors, that I send to you for free on that page. And you can just put in your email. You can unsubscribe at any time. But we're giving away a great ebook. As well as don't forget to follow us on Facebook too. We'd love to have you join our community. That'd be a fun way to interact. And I think that's basically about it, right?
I think that's it.
I think it's maybe time to
go to the beach.
Go to the beach.
Let's do it.
Great day here.
Beautiful day.
Okay, love you guys, and we will catch you on the next episode.
Thank you for listening to this episode.
It's time to go for now, but our mission does not end with this show.
Justin and Kate will be back with another interview packed full of ideas, discoveries, and unique ways to regain your health.
Head on over to extremehealthradio.com/subscribe and instantly download our free gift too that contains cutting-edge strategies to start making healthy lifestyle changes today.
No material on this blog is intended to suggest that you should not seek professional medical care. Always work with qualified medical professionals, even as you educate yourself in the field of live food nutrition and alternative medicine. I'm not a doctor, nor am I offering readers or listeners medical advice of any kind. None of the information offered here should be interpreted as a diagnosis of any disease, nor an attempt to treat or prevent any disease or condition. While information in this blog and during this podcast is discussed in the context of numerous conditions, it can be dangerous to take action based on any of the information on this podcast or in this blog, or to start any health program without first consulting a health professional. The content found here is for informational purposes only and is in no way intended as medical advice, as a substitute for medical counseling, or as a treatment or cure for any disease or health condition, and nor should it be construed as such. Always work with a qualified health practitioner or professional